Cognitive Upgrade Notice. By viewing Made You Think memes, you agree to accept responsibility for any insights, epiphanies, or sudden pattern recognition. We cannot be held liable for deprogramming, laughter, or connecting the dots you weren't supposed to see. Viewer discretion and a sense of humor is advised. Made You Think show is for entertainment purposes only, not responsible for sudden awakenings, broken narratives, or awkward conversations with normies. Side effects may include irrepressible curiosity, meme-induced clarity, and questioning everything you were told. So, before I get to the Solutions Watch part of the show, and that's where I get to go into the many ways to generate and restore health and well-being, I'm going to rub some salt in the wounds of the modern medical world. By the way, Solutions Watch is a nod toward the voluminous good works over at corbettreport.com. You can check the show notes to find it here. First off, definitions. Iatro equals doctor. So it's coming from the form iatro in Greek, with some cool Greek letters that I cannot name, which means physician or healer. Iatrogenic. That's a combination of iatros, which is physician, and genesis, or origin caused by. Iatrogenic is an illness or condition inadvertently caused by medical treatment or examination. Iatrogenic death means death caused unintentionally, occasionally intentionally, by medical treatment, procedures, or interventions, rather than the underlying disease. Anyway, here we go with the Star Wars scroll. Made You Think Show, Episode 4, A New Healthcare Hope, and the Shadow of the Iatrogenocide. It is a dark time for those who trusted their doctors. Across the galaxy, citizens sleepwalk through Rockefeller medicine, unaware of the Flexner reset that changed healing to profit. Big Pharma's empire tightens its grip, while whispers of forgotten knowledge rise. Meanwhile, a scattered rebellion of seekers now awakens, daring to reclaim true health from the shadows. The following is a list of all the ways someone can experience the most common causes of death in the USA and most industrialized nations. So here's the A to Z iatrogenic conditions list. With just 100 of them, there are a lot more than 100. Everything is alphabetized with short descriptions. So scroll through that. Keep scrolling through all of them. So many. Yes. From adrenal damages to wrong diagnosis, we have 1 through 100. So for everyone watching the video, you can go back and pause to read the list or go to the show notes at madeyouthink.com. This isn't a complete list. There are many other causes for iatrogenic death. That's why I call it an iatrogenocide. Estimates of how many people are killed in the USA annually from iatrogenic death range from 250,000 on the low end to about 450,000 per year. People just dead because they went and they trusted doctors, they went to a hospital. For one reason or another, they're dead. Basically, these are doctors following their own medical training and instructions from other doctors and instructions from hospital administrators and doing what they thought was going to help or what they were told to do. But they end up killing way more people than any other situation or accident, certainly way more than any form of homicide, including all suicides with or without firearms. You can read all about the history of modern iatrogenic death in the book Death by Medicine by Drs. Gary Null, Dr. Feldman, Dr. Racio, and Dr. Dean. And in case you're allergic to book reading, Death by Medicine is also made into a documentary, and you can find the link to that doc in the show notes to watch it or listen to it. This film, the film called Death by Medicine, explores the dominant medical paradigm, the current health crisis, and a healthier, more holistic system, based on Gary Null's groundbreaking book with statistical evidence of hundreds of thousands of injuries and death due to conventional medicine. It looks at the pharmaceutical industry, drug reps, medical schools, medical journals, and the absence of real medical science, the lack of oversight by our regulatory agencies, private insurance firms, and lobbying influence upon our legislators. The result is the American medical system is broken, and it is time to create a new medical paradigm. Today's episode of Made You Think Show is sponsored by Logical Fallacies. Is your perception management investment getting expensive? People getting wise to your business model of creating a problem, hyping up a reaction, and selling a solution? Well, you could get them while they're young with a prepackaged bag of logical fallacies. So up on the screen, I do have the logical fallacies, 11 of them, the common ones, but for sure you can go Google logical fallacies. You can look up 42 fallacies. There are over 200 isolated logical fallacies, but if you just catch a good 11 or 20 of them, that's pretty good. Basically, here's how the deal works. Get the average person to use logical fallacies to make important medical decisions. Just add a generous heap of appeal to authority. That is, you said that or thought that because an authority thinks something, therefore it must be true. Stir in some appeal to the majority. Argumentum ad populum. This is a fallacious argument that something is correct or true because most people think, believe, or feel that it is. And add appeal to tradition to taste. In this argument, the one arguing states that something is true or better because it is old or traditional. In other words, how true a statement is based upon the longevity of the belief, or how long it has been around, like slavery, which was around for a long time and really suffered under the appeal to tradition. So, in the beginning, there was this business plan. Step 1, fill the food with additives. Step 2, create pills that manage symptoms but ignore the root. Step 3, build lifelong customers. Step 4, celebrate the profits. How did this happen? Okay, it all goes back to an oil tycoon called John D. Rockefeller, not a doctor, someone who might or might not be tied into the moneyed interests of the powerful 13 families. Do I mean these 13 families that rule the world? The Astors, Bundys, Collins, DuPonts, Freemans, Kennedys, Lee, Onassis, Reynolds, Rockefeller, Rothschild, Russell, and Van Dyne bloodlines? Or did I actually mean these 13 families? The Borgia, the Breakspear, the Samaglia, the Orsini, the Conti, the Chigi, the Colonna, the Farnese, the Medici, the Gaetani, the Pamphili, the Este, the Aldo Brandini. Those bloodlines? I'm not sure which, but anyway, it seems like it was Rockefeller who hired Abraham Flexner to write the Flexner Report. So here's the glowing endorsement and description on Amazon. Abraham Flexner, the Flexner Report, Medical Education in the United States and Canada, a report to the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching. Oh, that sounds really good, doesn't it? An advancement of teaching. Okay, here's a summary of the reality of the Flexner Report, its motives, and what resulted. The too long didn't read aspect. When you actually run the falsification tests, the official story around the Flexner Report, that it was there to help create good quality medical teaching, breaks down really fast. The data lines up far more with a monopolization event than with public health reform. The claim, Flexner standardized medicine for safety and scientific rigor. The context. Okay, to falsify that claim, we test 3 areas. 1, health outcomes in eliminated versus surviving schools. Financial influence on curricula. Mortality trends versus sanitation and nutrition improvements. Step 3, evidence checks. Outcomes. Surviving versus eliminated schools. The finding, no primary evidence shows that patients treated by graduates of naturopathic, eclectic, herbal, or homeopathic schools had worse outcomes. Pre-Flexner eclectic schools documented excellent results with botanical medicine in infectious diseases. So-called infectious diseases. Homeopathic hospitals in the 1800s had far lower mortality in cholera, typhus, and Spanish flu wards than allopathic hospitals. That's from 1918 flu mortality, 1 to 3% in homeopathic hospitals versus 20 to 30% deaths happening in allopathic hospitals. Conclusion: the bad outcomes justification does not hold. Flexner's disclosures were ideological and financial, not outcome-based. Financial ties. Rockefeller goes to pharma, goes to curricula. The finding: Rockefeller Standard Oil had major investments in coal tar and petroleum derivatives. These derivatives became the first modern pharmaceuticals. Rockefeller Foundation grants required medical schools to teach pharmacology-heavy, lab-based curricula. Schools refusing this structure lost accreditation and funding. Conclusion: curricula aligned perfectly with Rockefeller commercial interests, not with comparative therapeutic effectiveness. Mortality trends, pharma surgery versus sanitation nutrition. U.S. mortality dropped before antibiotics, before vaccines, and before petrochemical pharmaceuticals. The largest declines in U.S. mortality, 1900 through 1940, tracked to cleaner water, sewage systems, refrigeration, and better food supply. Early 20th century surgery had extremely high infection and death rates. Pharmacology's benefits didn't appear until decades later. Conclusion: the claim that Flexner-driven pharma/surgery saved lives is historically false. Terrain factors did the work. That was with sanitation and hygiene. The synthesis. Running the falsification checks shows Flexner was not a quality control reform, but a centralization and commodification of medicine, wiping out successful non-pharmaceutical schools and replacing them with a petrochemical medical monopoly. Now the falsifiability. We can see if there was any pre-1910 comparative mortality data that disproves homeopathic eclectic success. We could try to produce evidence of non-Rockefeller funded schools thriving post-Flexner. We could produce early 20th century pharma/surgery outcome data showing superiority over natural modalities, but none of that exists. Hence, the conclusion stands. And here you can get this from the book An End to Upside-Down Medicine by Mark Gober, Contagion, Viruses, and Vaccines, and Why Consciousness is Needed for a New Paradigm of Health. Here's the transcribed text from page XVII 17 in Roman numerals, if you can read Roman numerals. In 1910, the general attitude toward medicine changed in the United States and Canada with the release of a lengthy report by Abraham Flexner. It was issued by the Carnegie Foundation and supported by the Rockefeller Foundation. The Flexner Report advocated for an overhaul of the medical system and dismissed, quote, the homeopathists, the eclectics, and the physiomedicals, and the osteopaths, in favor of a widespread allopathic model. As noted in the 2011 paper titled The Flexner Report, 100 Years Later, written by Thomas Duffy, MD, and published in the Yale Journal of Biology and Medicine, the Flexner Report transformed the nature and process of the medical education in America, with the resulting elimination of proprietary schools and the establishment of the biomedical model as the gold standard of medical training. 2 years later, Flexner published a similar critique of the medical systems in France, Britain, and Germany. So, my AI agent with a whole lot of custom parameters gave its 80-word opinion. This passage from An End to Upside-Down Medicine captures how the Flexner Report wasn't a neutral reform, it was a coordinated restructuring of medicine funded by industrial power. By sidelining homeopaths, eclectics, physiomedicals, and osteopaths, It engineered a monopoly favoring pharmaceutically aligned allopathy. This wasn't accidental. It aligned perfectly with Rockefeller interests in petroleum-derived drugs and the consolidation of medical licensing. The result: suppressed diversity of healing systems, centralized authority, and a biomedical model optimized for profit rather than holistic health outcomes. Since that time, the big money people involved seem to have been invested in a series of ways to slowly sicken most people or rapidly sicken a much smaller number of people. Ways like shaping perception on what good food is. And here's the meme showing the extremely obese family with a whole bunch of bread and sweets and stuff in their shopping cart. See, guys, all we needed to do was cut out the red meat. And of course, trust in pills and surgeries instead of changing lifestyles to become stronger and healthier. To trust in government-run healthcare instead of the robust system of competition and innovation found in private healthcare providers. Here's the beautiful Jim Bob meme. People who oppose government-run healthcare are poorly educated. And the other guy with the beard says, who runs education? Another way of messing it up: you could just trust in officially published medical studies instead of following the money to see who funded the research and what results are widely published in journals, funded by which profoundly wealthy industries and banking institutions. An important scientific study proves that the result of a scientific study depends entirely on where its funding comes from. Also, it's definitely time to fire any dietitian that looks and sounds like this action figure here. We got the registered dietitian starter pack. She is so obese, and she's got her corn oil, a bowl of apples, the standard food pyramid that's heavy on the bread at the bottom, and a sign, meat is dangerous. Now, before you burst out of the back seat of my car like Danny DeVito with some objections about how the science is settled or how much you trust the science, you know, the mainstream media lies about literally everything. And now you have Michael Smith saying, okay, I'm going to need you to verify that claim with a link to a credible mainstream media article. So please keep in mind, the easiest way to understand the situation of how industrial modern healthcare became the #1 killer in the USA and most industrialized nations is simply to follow the money. 97% of scientists agree with whoever is funding them. I mean, it's some basic logic regarding either putting oneself out of business by curing everyone or setting up everyone with health issues that are blamed on genetics and bad luck rather than the actual known food, medicine, and lifestyle choices of individuals. I love this meme with the Captain America and Iron Man, in this case, Captain America saying, pharmaceutical companies are working hard to eradicate disease. There's Tony Stark saying, so they can put themselves out of business. It's kind of obvious when you've been researching this stuff for decades like I have, and I realize this might be new to some of you folks. A simple rule of thumb is that I trust governments and their official stories, published sources, and popular spokesmen, like I trust that this is a real wedding photo with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sigourney Weaver and a little miniature ring bearer of Predator, a little ring bearer alien, or that these are real hairstyles approved by lions. That's some beautiful lion hairstyles. Before I get into the solutions watched, with all that gloomy outlook on what your healthcare insurance is ready to pay for right now, including but not limited to poisoning you with pharmaceuticals, maiming or killing you with botched surgeries, and burning you with various isotopes, where's the hope? How are these memes making my life more wonderful? That's why this is episode 4, A New Healthcare Hope. You have the power to find and eat real food, like this plate of food with ribeye steak and eggs, some bacon, there's some pickles, some natural cheese, some sliced avocado. You have the ability to manage your discomfort, your sense of entitlement, your application of discipline, and how you respond to pain. On discomfort, comfort is seductive. It whispers, Rest a little more. But comfort never built anything worth remembering. On entitlement, the world owes you nothing, not success, not healing, not understanding, but it will mirror your effort precisely. On discipline, stop waiting for motivation, you'll die waiting. Move even when you don't feel like it. That's how you build a life that respects you. On pain, pain is not your punishment, it's your teacher. The longer you avoid it, the louder it becomes. Meet it early, learn it quickly, and it leaves quietly. You can switch toxins for healthier options. You can switch chemical cleaners for vinegar and baking soda, for example. You can switch seed oils for olive oil, coconut oil. I would add tallow, lard, etc. You can switch fragrance candles for beeswax candles. You can switch non-stick pans, get rid of them immediately, with stainless steel pans, cast iron pans. You can switch plastic bottles to glass bottles. You can switch polyester to cotton. You can avoid eating strange new foods with dubious promises. Nothing like some caffeinated sandwich meat. Got the beautiful picture of Monster Energy ham. Love this one. You definitely can focus on what is your responsibility and what is not your responsibility. So in the center, similar to your locus of control, the stoicism, this is my responsibility, my words, my behavior, my actions, my effort, my mistakes, my ideas, and the consequences of my actions. And this is not my responsibility. Other people's words, other people's ideas, other people's mistakes, other people's opinions, other people's beliefs, other people's actions, the consequences of other people's actions. You don't have to force a positive attitude and smile your way out of depression and sadness. Love this book by Smile Your Way Out of Depression by Vanessa Bootstraps, from the award-winning author of Stare at This Book Until You Become Literate. You don't have to get microdosed by a student at the science fair. You don't have to be like Bert and take a heroic dose. Now that's a beautiful meme of Bert and Ernie, and Bert is looking upwards. It says the quote, after the second tab of LSD, Bert begins to read the text above him. And now the positive Star Wars scroll of options to look up and apply for maximum health care. It's A to Z modalities that reduce or eliminate the iatrogenic machinery. Starting with A for acupuncture, stimulates the body's natural healing signals by moving the qi, blood, and nerve pathways, reducing pain, inflammation, and drug dependence, helping the body self-regulate instead of outsourcing everything to pharmaceuticals. I would say it does a whole lot more than that, and often not about nerve pathways at all. From acupuncture and breath work all the way through scrolling. It's a big Star Wars scroll again. To the Zong Fu of classical Chinese medicine and organ systems. So some bonus modalities. You can have home hydrotherapy. That's hot, cold showers, bursting circulation and lymph flow, castor oil packs, supporting liver detox and digestion, bone broth and collagen, rebuilding gut lining, joints and skin, proper hydration and minerals, journaling, emotional processing, breath holds, CO2 tolerance training. That's the go to Breathe with Sandy on YouTube. Really great channel. I'm going to put a link to a specific video in the show notes. And for sure, sleep hygiene, getting enough sleep, nature exposure, reducing cortisol, boosting your immunity, grounding the mind, hot yoga and stretching, mobilizing the fascia, detoxing sweat pathways, harm reduction from Western medicine. So just ask the doctor before you receive treatments. Ask about the necessity, the risks, the alternatives. Avoid polypharmacy. That's taking a whole bunch of different pharmaceuticals. Demand informed consent. And humor is important for health. Relax. Even Neo, Agent Smith, Morpheus, and Trinity know when it's time to kick back and party. This has been Made You Think show. Thanks so much.
Made you think.